I got to keep it retro.
Well,
But now you just look like you're in Canada too. So
that's right. That's right. I got the Northern Lights going on for you. I tell you what. Let me just see if I can get better audio because I've got a mic here with a thing.
Yeah, you feel free to play around with it.
The audio, yeah, unless you think the audio's okay.
Well, yeah, let's see what you can do there with it, and then I'll let you know how it sounds on this end. I've already hit record.
Okay. This may or may not work very well. Let's see.
Okay. So welcome to the show. This is Dope Nostalgia, and we talk about stuff that happened in the 90s that was amazing, and you are amazing, so thank you for being here.
Oh, bless you.
You started as an actor at 19, from what I've gained from your Wikipedia. What type of projects were you doing at the time?
I was always a musician, actually, to be honest. And well, no, you're right. Your research is correct. But I grew up in a very musical background. My father was in a band called the Tremolos. They had many top 10 hits, around Europe and over here in the States as well. And so I grew up with music, and that was always my love. And when I was 17, I was already playing in local bars and pubs and things like that, playing piano, and playing Stevie Wonder and Billy Joel and Elton John Lennon songs. And I auditioned for the role of Buddy in a film starring Roger Daltrey. And the only reason I really wanted to do it is because I saw it as a way into the music industry. I thought, well, it was a very musical based film where the kid I was going to be playing was a songwriter and a singer, and Roger played my dad, and I got the role. Literally the first thing I'd ever gone up for as far as acting. So I'd never really thought that acting was my thing at all. It hadn't even crossed my mind up until that moment. But then that film came along and changed everything.
Good pathway, definitely, to get in. So yeah, you mentioned your family was very musical and your dad's band, which I definitely have heard of. Did you naturally progress into singing right from the beginning? Did you have other passions going on as a young person?
I was one of those kids that was 150% into music and nothing else mattered. I never had any backup plans or anything like that. It was always music, music, music. I see it in my 14-year-old son now. He's obsessed.
Yeah.
He always sleeps with his guitar. And so that was me as a kid. As I said, I grew up in a very rock and roll kind of background. So it was all around us anyway. And, the three of us kids were never going to be accountants or any kind of what would be classed as a 9-to-5 ordinary job. My mum was an actress and game show host, and my dad was a pop star, and all of his friends were all famous singers, really. Like Jerry Marsden from Jerry and the Pacemakers was probably my dad's best friend, and all these 60s beat bands that dad kind of came up with in the 60s, like the Searchers and the Marmalade and Herman's Hermits and all those kind of great bands. They were all my dad's mates. So not only was I kind of very much music was in my blood, but I was fame didn't seem like a kind of an alien thing to me. I was it was just there. So when it came to be my turn to possibly step up, it didn't feel so weird.
Yeah. And you grew up in England?
I did, yeah, in the south of England, not far from London. I was born in Windsor, actually, which is famous for Windsor Castle, where the Queen lives.
Yes.
Not that I was having tea with the Queen or anything like
that. Tell me about Nik Kershaw. Now, it's funny because since I've been doing the podcast, I've heard his name so many times and referred to as an influence to many, as an incredible songwriter. Tell me about him and your relationship with him, with the writing of your song. And
Well, I was a huge Nik Kershaw fan as a kid. Through my teens, he was one of the big influences in me musically. Because he's so, I don't know if you know his music, but his music is so, he doesn't write in a kind of a way that you wouldn't necessarily automatically go. You know, he's a very, very clever songwriting, and an incredible guitar player, like very, very underrated. You know, if you talk to any musician that knows of him as a musician, he's one of those where they'll point him out as one of their favorites as a musician. You know, his name always comes up. He's like, you know, in the music industry, he's known as like one of the greats. You know, it's just that, you know, I guess he didn't. Did he have hits in Canada? I don't even know.
I would say that they probably weren't that big because and like with me being when was his heyday? Like when
It
did
was
all of his
mid 80s. 84 was when the Human Racing album came out, and right through to 89.
I kind of feel like he's one of those artists that if I heard one of his big hits, I would remember it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't come to mind right away.
The big
So
one was a song called "Wouldn't It Be Good."
okay.
Wouldn't it be good to be on your side? There you go.
I've heard
So
it.
you know it. Yeah. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. So he kind of had minor success here in North America, I guess, and people do know that song. Anyway, so I grew up a big fan of Nik's, and when we were making the film, all the music had been written specifically for the film. It was a kind of a different project where the script writer actually, he wrote the books and then rewrote the script, and he wrote the lyrics for the songs, and then, you know, gave them out to songwriters, me included, as a young 17-year-old boy, and I ended up getting 3 songs on the album. But then, so the film was made, and the album was being wrapped, and the record company were like, you know what? I think we might need maybe one other song. You know, it was one of those kind of like, we need the hit, you know, and
Oh yeah.
so because it was a major record deal, and there was going to be, you know, a big push on the film and the album and everything. There was a lot of people that you know, were trying to get on it, and my dad knew a guy who worked at Warner Chappell, and he was having lunch with him, and he said, "Hey, check this out," and he put it on. And if you know Nik Kershaw, he's very recognizable voice, so you obviously know. I mean, you even know if it's a Nik Kershaw song, to be honest. He has that kind of style, that kind of thing that he naturally does, that you always know, even his playing. So Dad was like, "Oh, well, it's obviously a new Nik Kershaw album. That's my Chesney will be happy." And he said, "Well, it's not actually. You know, he wants to take a little sabbatical and start writing and producing for other people." So Dad brought this cassette back to me. Remember those?
Oh
And
yeah.
and I still have the songs written on the cassette there, and a couple that I'd asterisked on, and one of them was The One and Only. This was the song that eventually we released, and that the reason I wanted to do that song is because I wanted to meet Nik Kershaw.
Yeah.
That was my driving force behind it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's when we met. We met at Abbey Road where we were recording, and we hit it off even from those you know, early days, and now we're you know really, really good friends. And I've had some of my songs on his albums, and
Oh
I
wow.
never, in my albums, there's always a Nik Kershaw song on there, and I've learned so much from him over the years. He's, you know, he's just a jewel in the crown.
It's fantastic that you've developed that kind of relationship. It's a nice thing to
Yeah,
have.
we're now kind of, you know, peers and friends. Yeah.
And now you mentioned Abbey Road. Now, when we think of Abbey Road, especially, well, obviously the legacy there, what's the feeling when you walk through those doors, especially for the first time you did? Had you been there
Oh,
before you had ever recorded your own stuff?
no, I'd never been there, and I was lucky enough to make. Well, basically, all the music for the film was made there before we started filming. So I spent 4 months at Abbey Road even before we made the film, and then I spent another 3 months after we made the film at Abbey Road. So I spent, you know, the best part of a year there, and I got to know everyone so well. But when you walk in the doors of Abbey Road, you can feel that legacy. You can feel it. And I recorded in every room there. I was at Studio 2, which is famous for where they used to do a lot of their live recordings. You know, it overlooked, the control room overlooks this huge studio, big, huge ceilings, and it's all white, and you can kind of, you see old footage of them when they're recording Let It Be and stuff, or Abbey Road, and there's a rumor that there's a bullet hole somewhere in Abbey Road Studio 2 that John Lennon fired.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a magnificent place to record. All of the rooms there are amazing, and you know, I still stay in touch with some of the people that worked there when I was making records there, and I've been back there, you know, periodically over the years, and I mean, there's so many incredible records that were made there, and so many incredible artists that recorded there over the years. It was actually, I heard recently, because I was speaking to Giles Martin, and I didn't know this about Abbey Road, that it was the very first actual recording studio, like the first ever, you know, professional recording studio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Specifically assembled for people to come
Yes.
recording. Well,
Yeah,
I wonder what
exactly.
they were doing before that.
I know, it's crazy,
Right?
isn't it? Well, because back then, I think it was built in like, it started in the 50s, I think, or even the 40s, because it was originally built for making comedy records, you know, on acetate. So, I mean, back in those days, the engineers, they were literally scientists.
No
They
kidding.
wore literally white coats, and it wasn't like it is today, you know.
Yeah.
They all got long hair and ponytails and tattoos.
I just remember even the merits of using analog tape, and the sound you'd get from that and the comparison to digital. So yeah,
I
very
still
interesting.
prefer the feel and sound of analog. You know, I've only just given up the ghost of analog recently, but you know, there's a lot of great studios out there that still have all those analog equipment, and you record. These days, you record like the drums and bass and maybe vocals onto analog, and then transfer it over to Pro Tools. That's kind of the way they do it these days.
So the song "The One and Only" was used in a lot of movies as well, wasn't it? Like, it's been in a lot of soundtracks.
Yeah, it has what I call a song with wings. You know, it kind of goes out there and does its own thing. It was originally obviously in Buddy Song, which was the film that we talked about earlier on. And then very close off the back there, it was in Doc Hollywood with Michael J. Fox. And I remember that moment because the record was already #1 all over Europe, and I was traveling around doing my thing, and we were thinking about releasing in the States. And the record company over here called very excitedly to say that we've got a really good, they call it a sync, which is when you put music in motion picture. And so we've got a really amazing sync for The One and Only in a Michael J. Fox film called Doc Hollywood. And I was excited. I love Michael J. Fox. I was very excited about that. But the great thing about this sync, and I think it's a very, very rare thing, is that they literally played the whole song. So, I mean, normally when you get a sync, you'll get 10 seconds, 20 seconds, here and there, little snippets, you know. But, I mean, the holy grail is to get the whole song. And it was literally placed at the beginning of the movie, and it went all the way through the kind of beginning credits, where, you know, 3 minutes and 30 seconds, right to the very end of the song, where he's driving a red Boxster Porsche all the way through the beginning of the film, and then he crashes it, and then the film starts. So yeah, it was, and I think that's what put it over the edge here for me in the States.
And right at the beginning means that the attention is right on it right from the get-go. So fantastic.
Yeah, I guess so. But then there's the other side of it where you think, then you watch the whole film, then you've forgotten what happened at the beginning. So they do say the actual holy grail for a good sync is to have the closing credits.
Oh, when you're leaving the theater and getting into your car and thinking about that
song.
it.
Yeah, what was that song at the end there? Yeah, because by the end, by the end of the film, you're not going to remember what happened 2 hours before, right? Well, maybe you will, but we
especially
are talking about it now.
Now you pull out your phone and you Shazam it as soon as you can.
Exactly. Or even just, you know, Google, what was that song at the beginning of Doc Hollywood? Yeah.
It's true. So it was a huge hit. I remember it as a kid coming on my video stations all on our Much Music, and I just loved it. It was so catchy and fun. What was getting that first #1 like? What's that feeling?
Oh my God, I was so young.
Yeah.
It was, well, a dream come true for me, because as I said, I grew up in music, and all I ever wanted to do was be a musician. and and release records as an artist. It was just something that I had as a kid right through.
Hmm.
And so for me, it really was it was an incredible experience. Doing Top of the Pops, which I know is not a big thing for Canada, but it's
I
a
know of it.
huge. Yeah, I know the brand is known worldwide.
Yeah.
It's a BBC show in England that we all grew up with right from the '60s. Top of the Pops was the show where if you're on Top of the Pops, you've made it.
Mm.
And I remember the first time I did that show, and I was like, yeah, I've done it.
That's amazing. Is that show still in publication now? Is it still
No,
broadcast?
unfortunately, it's a thing of the past. They do
Oh.
show old reruns now and again, but yeah, it was a real shame, and there was a real uproar in the public in Britain
Mm.
when that was canned, and I miss it actually. It was it wasn't particularly interesting format. It was just Radio One DJs, which is the biggest radio station in the country,
Mm.
would present the latest hits on TV. That was the premise, and it went right back through the '60s and became very iconic.
I think the only thing we really have now for those types of musical event shows are more contests than anything, like reality TV,
Mm,
like The Voice, and I think we've kind of lost that because of the fact that we have YouTube now and everything's so easily accessible.
yeah, no, it's true. It's right there at our fingertips. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would have done with social networks back then. it's,
Can you
it's
imagine?
it's a very, very different world, really.
That's a question I ask a lot of people is how do you think your career would have been different if the internet was thriving at that time?
Well, the thing is, my career, I had an interesting beginning of my career because it was very much, I went down the heartthrob kind of, route. Not that that's what I wanted to do, but the record company kind of, that's what happens when you're part of the machine of the record companies.
Hmm.
They kind of choose how to promote you. And as a young person, you just kind of go along with it.
Yeah.
But so I think because it was so big, so quick, and I had so many legions of young fans, I think maybe you know social network probably would have been good for me in a way, because that's where everyone is it's everyone's talking about certain things. I probably would have trended a lot back then.
Hmm.
But then again, I kind of miss the mystique of an artist, the kind of anonymity. My favorite artist is probably Prince, and I
Mm.
think he did that. You know, intrinsically knew how that it was important to keep a mystique. You never really knew what was going on in Prince's life, and I
True.
think that's a good thing. Um, and of course, these days, everyone knows what Chris Martin had for lunch, so
Yeah.
it's just very different.
Yeah. You had more control over your image and what the people saw, and that was true to be. In England, did they have the same type? They must have had the same type of teen magazines that they have here
Mm,
in like, North America, like the Teen Beat and Bop. And
yeah.
did you get those big spreads and photo shoots and stuff like that at the
Yeah,
time too?
big posters that you pull out and put on the walls. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The big one in England was a magazine called Smash Hits.
Ah.
Uh, Smash Hits magazine was huge, and if you got front covers of Smash Hits, then you were doing well. And I think I spent a whole year on the front cover of Smash Hits. I had at one point I had more front covers than any other artist in the world, and it was because that's what happens when you hit that kind of teen heartthrob thing.
Hmm.
That's what teenagers buy is Smash Hits magazine. There's another one called Number One magazine, and another one
Hmm.
called Big. And then in
Okay.
Germany there was what was it called? Bravo was the big teen magazine, and
Ah.
Teen Beat here in the States, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which I know I made a cover of a couple of times, and yeah, it was interesting because you never got like deep conversations with the journalists from Smash Hits. It was always like what color underwear are you wearing, or you
Yeah.
know
Favorite food, stuff like that.
favorite food exactly, and do you have a girlfriend and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's different. I definitely don't miss those interviews.
I bet. And they're very repetitive, I'm sure.
Oh, it's totally. I used to joke about, like, when you do interviews with those kind of magazines. In fact, in general, when you're on the road and promoting a record, you do get the same questions a lot, as you
Yeah.
can imagine. So I used to kind of have stock answers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So sometimes they'd ask a question, and I had my management or record company people. Then I was like, "That's number 7," and I just just go into
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's
And that's
funny.
one thing I try to be careful about when I'm writing an interview too, is I'm thinking, okay, now Naomi, there's a lot of things that these people get to hear all the time. You want to try to give them something new and interesting and fun to think about and to
Yeah.
answer. But with the purpose of the show going back to the old days, this is more of like a walk down memory lane.
Sure. I'm going back to that point, though. I have to say, I actually, as an artist that does, I just literally came off a BBC interview before you, and I did another one before that. I'm always doing interviews with people, and of course, that some of them are fantastic, and I get great questions and different, and some of them ask the same questions. What have you been doing for the last 25 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's the classic. I always say, do you want like a day by day rundown? But what I love, my favorite type of interviews are just conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're having. It's okay to kind of, you know, just diverse into different things, and you can talk if something comes up. It's okay to go into that subject, and
Absolutely.
and I love that. So
That's the
anyway, I stopped you in your track.
Not at all. No, please continue. I was going to say that's the beauty of podcasting, actually, is
That's
it
true.
does tend to be more of a conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, and also, podcasts tend to be a little bit of a longer interview, over half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to know your subject a little more, and I'll get to know you, and
Mm.
so I love it when I can ask you questions. It's
Sure.
it's nice. It's nice, and I think that people that are listening to or watching podcasts actually appreciate that, because there's nothing more boring than question, answer.
Yeah.
Question 2, answer. You know what I mean?
Podcasting also gives you the chance to state what you actually think without anyone coming along and twisting your words.
Yes, taking things out of context and
Yeah.
editing and stuff like that. Absolutely, which does happen quite a lot.
I'm sure you might get the odd like shady one that might do that, but you really, I think, get it more of a chance to say what you think, and it's
Yeah,
kind of nice.
no, absolutely.
Did you find a different sense of achievement when you make a hit in America as opposed to at home?
Absolutely. I remember I was on tour at the time when the one and only broke into the top 10 over here,
Mm.
and I had in those days it was like the telex things I used to get, and
Oh,
it said, I can't remember the telegrams. I
yeah,
remember getting
yeah.
a telegram from my producer, who was a co-producer on the album, and it said, like, stop. He always used to say stop at the beginning of it. I don't know why, but there must be a reason for that. We need to look into that. So ask Google.
Yes.
And it said, you are in the Billboard top 10. Stop. and I remember that moment when it was handed to me backstage, after a gig, and it was such an incredible feeling, because I always wanted to make it in my home country, and of course that was always a dream, but to make it in the States is it's just like it takes it to another level.
Mm-hmm.
That's like and at the time I remember there weren't that many British artists having success in America, or in North America, in Canada, wherever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more, there was a couple. It was like Jesus Jones had
Mm-hmm.
just had a big hit with that, what's this song, Right Here Right Now, and
Yes.
then EMF with You're Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Our
But those were the
very
two. Yeah.
our very first episode was about EMF
Yeah.
of this show, and
Oh, was it?
yeah. Yeah, and I was lucky enough to speak to not their original guitar player, but their second guitar player who came into the band later. And I think he was from Liverpool.
Yeah, I remember crossing paths with
I
those
can't remember.
guys back in those days, because obviously it was around the same time that the records were released. And so we used to, bump into each other at, TV shows in Germany or in Japan or in the States.
Mm,
I remember bumping into the lead singer of EMF in Los Angeles at some event or something. It's funny. I'm not in touch with them now. But what my point was that when the One and Only was released, there weren't that many English artists doing very well over here, and
mm,
so when it actually did eventually become a hit, it was tingles for me. Tingles. Yeah.
mm,
I have one regret, and is that I didn't come over here and stay here for 6 months, a year, because I kind of let it go. I was too busy kind of promoting other records in England and Europe, and I know, now I look back and I think, I should have dedicated like 6 months, a year to promoting and releasing records over here,
mm,
especially off the back of a top 10 single. You know,
mm-hmm.
it was, but I think, in hindsight's 2020, isn't it? You just
True.
you can. You can look back in life and think, was that a mistake, or did that lead me to something great? Who knows? If I'd have come over here, maybe I wouldn't have met my wife. I don't know.
Exactly. Everything happens the way it happens for a reason, and it's a difficult choice to make at the time. So,
Oh, I was bloody 19 years old, and traveling around the world as a pop star, and I thought my team had it. you know,
yeah.
that's the thing. But you live and learn, and I really am not one for regrets. Really, I do think that everything that you've experienced in life, whether it's ups and downs, kind of brings you to where you are now, and I'm definitely very happy.
Mm.
And I think I have my priorities probably right. And if I'd have carried on having that kind of success as a young man, I don't know, maybe people wouldn't have wanted to be around me anyway. So
You never know. Like, if you see what happens to so many young people, and the number one reason I think that they fall victim to drugs and whatnot is too many yes people in their lives. Too
yeah,
many people
no,
want to be
absolutely.
so connected to this artist and their fame that they'll never tell them when they're doing something that's going to destroy them.
So true. And it's not just drugs either. It's like you can get caught up, especially these days. I see it all the time with these, especially with reality TV. Not just when you have a hit record. I mean, with reality TV, it's so quick, meteoric, and short-lived,
Mm,
um, that these kids get thrown into, the machine, and they have no help. They believe their own hype. If they don't have good people around them, family, good friends, or whatever, to tell them that it's all bullshit,
mm-hmm,
doesn't really, none of it means anything, and that it probably won't last. They don't, and if they don't have that around them, and those good people to kind of tell them that, it can affect them emotionally and mentally.
mm,
And I think there's not enough, especially now with Twitter and social networks, where you can get. This is how I equate it. Like, I remember having the love from general public. Can you shut that door, Andy, please? Having the love from people and fans, and loving that. But I also remember, the other side of it, which
mm,
is going to be there. You're not going to please everyone. You're not going to make everyone happy. And of course, I was that heartthrob thing. So I was never going to make kind of men who I probably wanted to, listen to my music, but never going to make them happy. And of course, I got a lot of hate from them. And, nowadays you get it like arrows coming from a battlefield. It just comes at you, and whether you read it or not, it's there, and it
yeah.
goes in, and you can feel it, and if you're not prepared, um, and you're not ready for backlash, and people literally hating you for no real reason, and the people that don't know you, if you're not ready for that, it's gonna affect you. And I don't know what it's like in Canada, but like there are certain shows in England that have been so successful, like a show called Love Island,
Mm,
where it's it is what it is. It's very much kind of pretty boy TV, and they're all, you know, washed abs and beautiful people and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they get thrown into the spotlight, and it's huge TV ratings, and people love them. They're on the front of the red top, tabloids, and the British press is renowned for, you know, building people up and then just knocking them down. And there's been 3 suicides by contestants on that show alone. You know, so it is a serious thing, and it is something that I think needs to be addressed. And you know, for me, I feel like they need to have therapy. I think they need therapists on hand to deal with something that is extraordinary to a young person. You know, that's not something that you normally would have to deal with. You know, hate coming at you from millions of people for no real reason, because they don't know you, they don't understand. They're just going along with the tabloidness of it all, and it's hard, you know, because I've been through the machine and I've seen that. I had good people around me. My family was around. My father was there. He was co-managing at the time. My brother was my drummer, still is. I had people to kind of keep my head in the clouds and tell me I was being a dick if I was, or not to believe, you know, all the good stuff, all the hype see all over the press and everything else. You know, I come from a good grounding, and I think that kept my feet on the ground. But I could easily have gone off the rails, easily. You know, drugs are there, you know, because you get money. So money, there's drugs, and it's easy to fall into those trappings and fall into the wrong way of life. So, you know, I'd like to see these TV shows, you know, take a little bit of, you know, of these stories and actually do something about it.
I wonder if I hate to say something like this, but I wonder sometimes if the reason is they want to keep people agitated, or they want them to be more entertaining in a way that gets them more ratings. Do you know?
Well, of course, they're going to pick they're going to pick the characters that are, you know, unstable anyway.
Exactly. And I feel like that's more of a priority to them than these mental health of others.
I think you are absolutely right, but I do think there is a wave from the public, of people that are seeing this happening and want them to take a little bit of responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that things worked out for you in a way that you've had a stable life and you have a great family and everything. So what a blessing that is.
Oh, it is a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, I've got 3 beautiful children and a gorgeous wife, and you know, and a good life. I'm able to make money from playing music. I mean, I remember Roger Daltrey saying to me once back in the day, like, you know, fancy getting paid for what you love doing. I know how lucky I am, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
Thank goodness that you're able to do that, because not a lot of people can say that, you know.
Know about their job. Absolutely. No, I realize that I'm probably in a, you know, 5%er in that respect.
What's one of the strangest gifts that you've ever received from one of your fans? Does anything stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, God, I've had all sorts of weird things from. I remember somebody sent me a coconut to sign. That was a bit weird.
And can you just mail this back to me? Okay.
Yeah. I had a horse's head thrown on stage once. Pantomime horse's head, like, you know, one that you put on your.
Oh, yeah.
And the bass player ended up putting it on. I think that the creepiest thing I ever got sent in the mail was back in the heyday, like in '91. There were girls kind of camping outside the house and things like that, and there's that classic pop star thing. And we were sent in the mail some photographs that a fan had jumped over the fence and crawled into the house through like the dog flap, you know, and gone around the house and taken photographs of all sorts of things in the house, the bedrooms, you know, bathrooms, whatever, and taken the photos and then sent them to me to sign. So, I mean, it's the mind of a, you know,
Creepy.
the mind of a probably 14, 15-year-old girl probably thought it was, you know, perfectly fine to break into someone's house and take photos. And then, but the fact that she sent them to me to sign, I thought, was that, I didn't know whether to call the police or tell her off or.
Yeah, yes, like what do you do after that?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I'd
But you
probably
know, it was,
talk to the parents or something. Yeah.
yeah, I think we did. I think we talked to her. I think my father talked to her and just said like what you did there was probably illegal. I remember there was another time talking about the girls outside the house. My mum was always very nice to the fans outside the house, and there was this one time where, probably early days actually, where one of the fans were like ringing the bell and saying, "I really, really need to use the toilet. Can I come in and use the toilet?" And my mum, being lovely as she was, yeah, okay, I guess you can do that. She came in and let her use the loo, and what we didn't know is that she stole some toilet paper, a roll of toilet paper, and took it outside and was like selling the it off like a couple at a time and a pound a pop. She was then forever known as Belinda
Wow.
Bogrol.
She was way ahead of her time. This is normal now.
Yeah, she was an entrepreneur.
Unreal. How have you taken care of your voice for over the years when you go on the road? And do you have rituals that you do to care for yourself
I do.
and your singing?
Yeah, I wasn't so good back then, although Roger, I keep mentioning Roger because he basically, you know, he was like a father figure to me back then.
Mm-hmm.
He had this thing back then that he taught me. It's like a voice warm up thing where you grab you grab this gauze with him and you hold your tongue and you do these kind of vocal warm up things. And I had this like image of him holding himself. If you can imagine Roger holding his tongue in his eye, and you go gee, gee, go, go, like. So I did that for a while. Roger was hilarious doing that. I don't do that so much now. I do have a vocal warm up thing that I do before every single gig. And you know, I don't drink before a gig these days. I used to, because it definitely dries up your vocal cords. But it's important. I think a lot of we're talking about young kids that come into you know, fame early days and have to go in and do gigs and stuff. And if they don't warm up, you always find it after like 6 months to a year, they got to cancel gigs because they got laryngitis. It happened to Adele. It happened to
Oh,
Ed Sheeran. It happened to, you know, you hear it a lot, don't you? So it is
yes.
important. And I drink a lot of water. You know, I think it's important to keep, you know, it is a muscle. And I mean, you know, back then I remember I used to drink all the time, and like, and I guess when you're younger, you can kind of you can do it, you know. But these days, as you start getting older, it definitely. I mean, my voice I think has gone down a couple of tones, so I've had to kind of adapt some of my old songs. I listen to my old records. I'm like, bloody hell, I can't reach those notes anymore.
Yeah, and there's only so much you can do about that's just nature happening to you, right?
Yeah, it does happen. It does. I mean, you know, my voice now. I used to have a very kind of a pure tone, and
Mhm.
now I'm like bloody Brian Adams. It's you know, I
I like that though. I'm a big
yeah.
fan of the rasp as long as it's not contrived. Like when
Oh,
you
of
hear
course.
somebody
Oh no.
who's really pushing and
Who's
faking a
trying to
rasp in
make
their
no?
voice, drives me nuts.
I completely agree. I completely agree.
But when
It
it
has
just
to be
comes out
natural.
natural and it hits so nice, it's great.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, when you get raspy like that, which I have now, I just become like that, is it's way less controllable.
Hmm.
So, you know, it's, you never know what you're going to get from gig to gig. You open your mouth. Am I going to get the good rasp, or am I going to get the one that kind of breaks and goes crazy?
Yeah, exactly. If I crack on this note, is it gonna crack in the right spot? Is it gonna?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so risky.
You have to hit the sweet spot, you know, and sometimes it's just not that. I think it all depends on what, you know, what if you had a couple of drinks the night before, or
Mhm.
if you had a curry, or you know, it all depends on all sorts of things, because it is, you know, it's a muscle. It reacts to different things.
Absolutely. Now, in 2002, you collaborated with Adam. I want to say his last name correctly, Schlesinger
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Fountains of
bless him.
Wayne. Who, yes, God bless him because he just passed from COVID, unfortunately. Um, and what was the collaboration? Did you go? What kind of
Um,
relationship did you establish there?
we Adam and I met in New York back in kind of late 90s, I think maybe 97, something like that. And he just formed Fountains of Wayne. And so he was one of the bands kind of in that, in the kind of Greenwich Village kind of New York that were playing at the Bowery Ballroom and, places like that. They hadn't made it. So we met and started writing songs together. And he was always just genius pop songwriter. I remember seeing them play back then in a small club. I was playing the same place. I had a band called Ebb at the time, EBB, and we were playing the same circuits. And they'd started to have a following. And I don't know if you know any Fountains of Wayne, but they're just
I know
classic.
the big hit.
Yeah, like Stacey's mum. Well, go back and get. There's an album called Radiation Vibe, I think it's called, I think that's it. Anyway, the hits, the big song from that album was called Radiation Vibe. So many amazing, great classic pop nuggets on that record. So Adam
Nice.
had an absolute gift for writing fantastic pop songs, like real pop sensibility. So we wrote a few songs back then, and stayed in contact. And I put in 2002, I took a song that we wrote back then called "Stay Away, Baby Jane." I put that on one of my albums, and it ended up being the first single from that album, and it did quite well actually. And so that was an Adam song. And so Adam and I kept in contact, and then Fountains of Wayne went off to have great success. And then Adam just flew. He ended up he had an Oscar nomination at one point. I mean, I think he was doing really well, and I always knew he would do well because he was just a genius pop songwriter. I mean, he wrote a lot of the songs from My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the TV show.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, his discography is very eclectic, and he had a lot of success. And I tell you what, I also met up with him when I first moved here to LA. He was over here with Fountains of Wayne, and I joined the band playing guitar and backing vocals, and we did the Conan O'Brien show with Harry Shearer.
Yes.
Who was Derek Smalls in Spinal Tap, for those who know that. Legendary Derek Smalls. And he also is the most of the voices in The Simpsons. Like he does Mr. Burns, and he does what's the next door neighbor? Hey, neighborino.
Ned Flanders.
Ned Flanders. Ned Flanders. He does Mr. Burns. Yeah. So yeah, and he did. He also plays the Scottish caretaker in school.
Groundskeeper Willie.
Yeah. So yeah, you know these things. Yeah. So Harry was an absolute legend. So that was the last time I saw Adam actually. We were in that band together, and we did a couple of gigs as well here in LA. Just a lovely, lovely man, and incredibly talented. And I was just more than shocked to hear about his death. I mean, he's my age, and I just
way too young.
It just doesn't seem real. It still doesn't seem real, and just way too young, and just so talented, and had so much ahead of him. And I'm going to miss him. It was a real shame. So you listeners out there, go and check out Fountains of Wayne and go back to their early stuff. I mean, listen, every record was brilliant.
Yeah.
But the early stuff I loved because it was maybe it was a time for me, like late 90s, just genius.
I should probably do an episode about them, to be honest.
Yeah, why not? You should get some of the guys on. Jody, the guitar player, and the singer Chris, he's really great, and I'm sure they would love to do it. Yeah.
I have a question from one of our listeners named Andrew, good friend of the show. He wants to know what your basic guitar rig looks like.
Well, over the years that has changed a lot. My favorite up till probably a year ago was literally I had a orange 130 AD 130, which I still think is the best sounding rich distortion out there. I mean, I love that old amp, but it kind of fell apart. I've been touring forever, and I would have like a tube screamer. I've always had a big muff.
Oh,
in the,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
Muff, for those you don't know, is a guitar pedal. I'm
Mm.
not just being rude. I've always had a Big Muff.
Mhm.
Um, what else do I have in there? Some kind of tremolo or flange unit is always in there. But I've this guy sounds like he probably is an original analog type of guy. If he's asking about a guitar rig, he probably is. So he's probably going to think I'm some kind of Philistine right now. But I've but I've recently moved to a Kemper amp, which is digital, has everything
Mm.
in a little box, and looks like a little lunch box. And for gigging, it has changed my life, because
Mm.
for a guitar player, it was always a nightmare. I love the whole the feel and just plugging up of an analog setup.
Yeah.
And I still had that in the studio, to make you happy. But for live, it took an hour or so to get everything out the van. It's a heavy 2-man job, get it all together, set it all up. And of course, the older analog gear, there will always be one pedal that didn't work, or a lead that was just playing up, and it was just forever like crackling things, and oh bloody hell, my rig's not working, or whatever. Anyway, so I moved to the digital side, the dark side, and I've got my Kemper amp, and I literally just plonk it beside me, plug it in, and I've got my foot pedal, which has all my old I can actually model the amplifiers that I had before. I've got my Fender Twin modulation. I've got my old orange modulation that I like, and it literally, to an untrained ear, you wouldn't tell the difference. This guy probably would, and I do apologize. I'm saying sorry to him now, but I took the easy road.
It's okay. Andrew will forgive you. It's fine.
I hope Andrew,
You'll love
please
it.
forgive me.
He had one more question relating to the guitar player in you. What's the most exciting up and coming guitarist that you know of right now?
Well, I'm going to say my son.
Yeah,
Look out for the name Indiana Hawks, because
nice.
he's only 14, bless him, and he's only been playing for only 6 months, but he is spectacular.
Wow.
I remember playing him Prince, like Purple Rain or Let's Go Crazy was what got him going. I played him Let's Go Crazy even before he played guitar, and he just lost his mind. He's like, I want to do that. He's like, I am going to be as good as Prince, and anyone that say that, I can feel the drive in him.
Ah.
I can see, he gets up and he just plugs in and plays, much to the disgust of his sister, who he shares a bedroom with. But now, he's playing, he plays the solo to the one and only, which is ridiculous. It's a crazy solo, originally played by Nik Kershaw, and all the guitarists that I've had in my bands over the years, no one's ever got it right. And Indy has managed to nail it, which is quite spectacular after 6 months of playing guitar. I mean, he's got a little ways to go, but he's pretty great.
How
He's pretty
proud you
great.
must be. That's
I
amazing.
really am. I really am. I'm proud of all of my kids. They're all, and they are all following in my footsteps as well. My daughter's a great singer, and my son is a musical theatre darling.
Yes.
That's his thing.
What's more important to you as a listener of music? Do you listen more for the lyrics or the composition of the music, or is it just a bit of both?
Yeah, it's both, to be honest with you. I have I am a music lover. I really am, and I love to discover new music. And it's we've always, and what I'm loving is rediscovering music with my children.
Yeah.
And I love it when they bring stuff to me as well. I love that. But like Indy comes into me and says, "Oh my God, Dad, have you heard of Led Zeppelin?" I'm like, "I may have." And he's like, "Check this guitar solo out from Gary Moore,"
Oh.
And so I love that. And it's like rediscovering albums. I'm like, "Oh, the album, you need to go and listen to Blood and Chocolate by Elvis Costello. Just go and do it. Go lock yourself in a room, go and listen to that, and come back and we'll discuss." So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that kind of side of it with my kids. But there's nothing quite like creating, and I love the studio. I love that creative spark of walking in with a canvas and coming out with something. I mean, whether it's good or not, it's something that wasn't there that you've created. You know, I love that feeling.
What a feeling.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. From the other side of the coin, as a writer, where do you usually go towards for yourself, lyrics or music, or both?
I love it when I have a concept to start with, you know, and even better if I have a title. So if I have a title and a concept, then I can run with it.
Yes.
Very often I find music easier to come by. So I can sit down with a guitar and just play just a riff or something, you know, just kind of it just comes, you know, no matter what it is, I know it's there. Lyrics are a little bit more difficult, but you know, I think you have to work a little bit more at that. Which is why I love to have a concept or beginnings of a lyric or a title to work to, because then I can kind of play my little thing that I've just come up with, and then, you know, fit something into it, you know. The worst, which happens like probably 80% of the time, the hardest way to write a song is to write the music and not have any lyrics, and then you're like, shit, think about
it's like it feels more like you're filling in the blanks at that point than a natural flow. But
are you a writer as well?
Yes. But for me, one of the best feelings when I'm writing, like composing the music part, is when the chorus comes easily. The rest of it seems like it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine because I got the chorus. But when I come up with a brilliant verse and then I go into a pre-chorus and I'm can't get the chorus, you're just
because if you love the verse, then you know you've got to better that verse with the chorus.
You have to still outdo yourself.
It's one of the things that I learned really early on from Nik, because he is all about the chorus, and he very often writes the chorus to start with. And one thing that he taught me, which I do a lot, is writing in reverse. So you've got a chorus, then write the pre-chorus to go into that chorus, and find somewhere some different way to get into the chorus. And then when you've written the pre-chorus, go back and find an interesting way to get into that pre-chorus with the verse. Because when you do that, you go to different places, you end up in different keys, and interesting things happen. And it's a really good exercise.
Thank you for telling me that. I'll have to
give it a go. Give it a go. I'll give you some homework. You go off and,
I'll come back to you with a new track. Exactly. And the thing too is that you want to get the listener's attention right off the bat. So it's important with the verses is just as much in that aspect, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to lose them in the first 30 seconds of the song before they can even get there.
Of course. I mean, and then often, you know, I like to actually start maybe sometimes with a little bit of a chorus before you go into a verse. So it gives a little nod to it, even if it's just the chords to the chorus, or just a line from the chorus, and then, you know, you can. I guess it's
hence classic. Your biggest hit.
That does that absolutely completely. It knocks you over the head with the hook.
No, I think pop songwriting 101.
Yeah, I know. Well, we could do 3 hours on that one, couldn't
we? What album track have you put out that you wish would have been a single? I'm going to play it on the show.
That's a good one.
I'm going to play a clip of it for everyone to hear.
You know what? There's a song that is probably my most requested song by the fans now. On my most recent album. It's called John Lennon Lived Here. And it's a song that I wrote when I was 19 years old, about the first time I ever went to New York. And I wanted to... I was more excited about going to New York because I wanted to go to the places that John Lennon was famous for being photographed at, or had lived, or, you know, go to the Imagine Circle. And so I went to New York and I wrote this lyric about that. And then I ended up writing the music. In fact, ended up writing the song with Nik. And it's one of my favorite songs I've ever written. I was only 19 when we wrote it. But now it's a fan favorite. And And I went with a different song for a song called Airplane, which I love and I'm proud of. It was about my kids, but that one seems to kind of have hit some kind of a nerve with my fans anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna play a clip for everyone to hear.
Okay,
It's gonna be
great.
great. And if you have any songs that you're promoting that are coming up and whatnot, we can play that too. Just let me know.
Funnily enough, just before all this craziness hit, I had an album pretty much ready to go, and as we would call Murphy's Law, it just happened at the wrong time, and just as I was about to go out and do videos and photo shoots and all that kind of content stuff, I can't leave the house, let alone do a photo shoot. So
Yeah.
so the album, and I've got a great team, great record label and everything behind me now. And it is all very exciting. And so we have now decided to put it off for a little while, which is good in one way because I can go back to the album and make sure that I'm 100% happy. And I'm sure there possibly will be another couple of songs here and there that might not have made the album, but then will. So in the meantime, what I'm doing is concentrating on doing some online shows. If anyone's interested in that kind of stuff, go to liveandunfiltered.com, or they can just go to chesneyhawkes.com,
and they'll find everything there.
Everything's there. Yeah, exactly.
Have you been to Canada before?
I have, and the last time I went to Canada, I was in Toronto.
Toronto.
And I was in a film called what was it called? It's ridiculous. I don't know the name of the bloody film. World of Warcraft. Sorry.
Oh, like based on the video game.
Yeah. And the reason that I was in it was it's actually quite a funny story. You'd probably like it. Duncan Jones, who is the director, he's David Bowie's son. And his first film was a film called Moon with Sam Rockwell. And it was a small budget sci-fi film that he used the one and only in a really cool, interesting sync. I don't know if you've never seen the film, you should watch it. It's brilliant.
Okay.
And it became a cult classic, like almost instantly. It's a brilliant film. And of course, Sam Rockwell's genius in it. So he used the one and only. And that was his first film. And then we became Twitter friends because people were talking about the song that was used in a really interesting way in the film. And we started talking, and then he contacted me and said, I'm doing another film called Source Code with Jake Gyllenhaal, and I want to use the song again, but it's too expensive for the sync. Like the record label just, my old record label wanted to charge too much for it. And he said, can you help? And I was like, yeah, I guess I could re-record it. What do you want it for? And he said, I want it for a ringtone. And I was like, yeah, I think we could do that. So you just want I am the one and only. He said, yeah, kind of. So Nick and I got together and re-recorded a little bit of the chorus for the one and only, and we gave it to him so he could use it in the film. And he was like, that is amazing. Thank you. You guys are brilliant and all that kind of stuff. And so then it became like a little happy kind of moment in his films, like a lucky rabbit's foot or something. And he had to kind of use it in his next film, which was World of Warcraft. So, and this was like a huge, like $300 million budget film, And he said, but this time I want you in it. I want you to be in it. So, but it's because it's a medieval thing. He wanted me to do it as a, on a lute or something. So I said, we have a conversation. I said, I don't really know what do you mean? Can you just give me an idea? And he said, I want you to be like, I am the one and only, nobody I'd rather be, So I went away and recorded it with a lute. And so there's this medieval version of the song. And hang on a second.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, let me try and restart that.
Okay.
Restart the video. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as
Let
we
me
have
finish off
audio.
that story
Yeah.
then quickly. So he flew me up to Toronto, and yeah, I guess we're okay with audio. Yeah. So he flew me up to Toronto, and he dressed me up like a medieval bard, which you can see if you probably find it online somewhere. And I played this medieval bard when I'm playing the one and only in the corner of this ridiculous medieval pub, and so that was my last time in Canada. We have a
Wow.
long-winded way around of getting that to you.
No, it's
Of
cool
answering
now
that
that you
question.
have this. Every time he makes a movie now, you've got to have a little piece of you in that movie. I would say that's a great
His
idea.
last film was called Mute, which was a film starring Alexander Skarsgård on Netflix, I think it was,
Mm.
and he used the song in another interesting kind of sci-fi way, because it was like in some kind of dystopian, almost Mad Max type of film, and so he used it as part of a video game.
That's brilliant. I love it. Um, I was going to ask you a couple silly questions to end off our chat today. What food, clothing item, toy, etc., would make you nostalgic for the 90s? Something that was really big to you then.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Food, clothing item, or toy?
Yeah.
Well, clothing item would definitely be my leather jacket,
Yes.
because I was kind of known for that at the time. That was my staple. It was a jeans, white t-shirt, black leather jacket, and a red strat. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Do you still have the jacket?
You know what, that I think it was given away in an auction, that original leather jacket. I wish I still did have it. And
Oh,
the
that's cool.
and the original red strat was also given away in an auction. I mean, it's great that we made money for charity, but I wish I had that now. Not as much as my son wishes I still had it.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's like, Dad, why did you have to get rid of that?
Aw. Well,
Bless him.
it's been such an amazing time talking to you. Really, really loved it. So thank you for having a great conversation with me. Do you want to give any parting messages to the fans listening today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It was really lovely. I enjoyed it too. It was nice to talk, deeply about things, and I appreciate a good interview when I see it.
Wow.
And as far as a message to people out there, it's just nice to know that there are some people in Canada that might be interested in what I had to say. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And if you are
Absolutely.
interested in anything, go to chesneyhawkes.com.
Brilliant. And yeah, this will be on Spotify and Apple Music. It'll be all over the place, all over the world. People will be able to hear it.
Oh, great.
So yeah, it was great. I'll
Yeah, it was
definitely,
wonderful.
if you have more music to promote, shoot me an email and then we can
Yeah.
talk about it on the show. And I'll try to play some clips too in this episode, which is probably going to be still a few weeks away before it's released. And what I'll do is the week I put it out, I'll give you an email just so you know it's coming out.
Wonderful. Yeah, please let me know, and I can spread the love as well.
I appreciate that. All
Of
right. Well,
course.
I hope you and your family are staying safe and well. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, you too. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll be out of this craziness soon.
Yeah.
But keep doing this because this is wonderful. It's a great podcast.
Oh, it's been a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.